This episode is brought to you by Communications Training for Coffee Teams, a new Map It Forward workshop tailored to get your team communicating more confidently to improve general mental health as well as business profitability. Click the link in the show notes for further details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 1 of a 5-part series with Andrew Tolley. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I'm really, really excited about this series. This is one of my favorite topics that we've never talked about on the podcast. We're going to be talking about education in the coffee industry. And we are going to hit some hot button subjects because Andrew and I are very passionate about this subject. So thank you for coming to do this series, Andrew.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. And I really love the work you're doing with Map It Forward and the courses and the podcasts you're putting on. It's really fantastic. It's a great great resource for the coffee industry.
Thank you. Speaking of which, tell everybody what you do and what your relationship is with education at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So I've probably been working in coffee education for most of my career in coffee since about 2006. And that started with, as most people got into coffee education through barista training for our baristas in businesses I was working in. Over the years, I've developed lots of different training programs and worked with different educators across the industry. I've been working with the SCA for many years as well. So doing different things, but the last 2 or 3 years have been focused on coffee education through running the Coffee Knowledge Hub, which is a online education platform that I'm working on with Laura Fioretti and Mauricio Giuli from the Simonelli Group. So it's a coffee education platform. It's runs courses from different training providers from across the whole coffee industry. So we're in a sort of agnostic platform. We have courses from SCA, from soon to be Map It Forward, from CQI, from independent providers like Coffee Sensorium. So a huge range of different education providers, and we support them with running their courses we've got a learning management system in our back end and a front end website. So that's it in a nutshell.
And your brief history in the coffee industry.
Yes. So briefly set up a cafe business with my brother's sister back in 2006 called Taylor Street Baristas. We grew that to about 13 cafes. And we were very focused in that business on coffee training for our baristas. So we saw back then that in the early days of coffee or especially coffee in London, there were obviously no baristas, right? It was very, it's still difficult to hire good baristas, but there was no way we were hiring qualified baristas back then. So when setting up that business, we realized that we needed to be able to recruit great people and then train them how to make good coffee. What we would always say back then is you can train people on coffee quite easily. You can't train them on like hospitality, some of the other hospitality skills.
Yeah.
And so we would we always looked for great people to hire, and then we developed a training program which took them from kind of zero skills to professional barista level, which we would consider sort of being able to make very high quality coffee in a short amount of time, pouring latte art, being able to talk knowledgeably about the coffee, and also to be able to serve it to customers in a friendly way where you kind of build a relationship with those customers. And that was a sort of foundation, I think, a real pillar for what the Taylor Street Baristas coffee business was. And it allowed us to bring a lot of people into the coffee industry as a result of that. So people who are already passionate about coffee, but just didn't know how to get a foot into the industry. And now we sort of still see the yield from that. A lot of great kind of coffee people in the industry, certainly in the UK, have come through the Taylor Street doors.
And it's a world famous brand. which is, within the industry, it's a world famous brand. Everybody knows Taylor Street,
Right. Okay.
which is a testament to you guys,
It's not always nice to hear, but it's always also difficult to know how much of an impact you've had outside of the UK. I think we sort of were certainly aware of our reputation in London, but outside of that, it's hard to say. But it was a great experience, and we did that until 2019. And then we also set up another business called Harrison Hull, which was a joint venture with a large supermarket chain in the UK called Tesco. And the aim of that business was to kind of bring specialty coffee to a larger audience. So it was growing. This was back in 2012, and we were trying to grow specialty coffee outside of just London, where it had sort of taken off, and get it into more regions. And we grew that to 55 sites, I think, in about 18 months.
Wowzers.
So that was quite special, because we had to take our training program, we had to compact it into a 5-day period initially. So we would take, again, baristas with no training, train them from zero skills to being able to pour latte art, again, within a certain amount of time, and deliver it to a very high quality, while also being able to serve customers well. And so we did that with sort of 40-hour training program. They would go to this training center. We had three group machines, and each barista would have at least one grinder and one group head to practice on, so they could build up all the motor skills they needed to in order to be able to sort of meet the goal of serving great coffee. And again, that had a huge impact. So coming out of that business was a UK barista champion, for example. It was Paul Ross.
Oh wow!
And a number of others. So it's been a great, again, a really nice business for the industry, and also just a fantastic experience for consolidating a training program, because between the Taylor Street training model and the Harrison Hull model, we realized the importance of training for any number of different parts of running a coffee business, which we'll get into in this series.
Oh, but yeah, we will.
One of the critical things is giving baristas progression. So you always want to give them the next step, like, where do I go from here? So our training programs were always about delivering on that.
Yeah, awesome. In this series, we're going to talk about the state of coffee education within the industry, and specifically in this episode, we want to take a look at what some of the different programs are that are available. Before we get started, we haven't mentioned this on the podcast yet, so this is the first time we're telling people on the podcast. We've already mentioned it by the time this airs on social media, but do you want to tell everybody what's happening? What's happening?
You give me the chance to talk. So we're launching a new course delivered by Yuli. It's called How to Become a Coffee Consultant, and it's a multi-part course. It's on demand, so it means that you register, and then you can follow the course at your own pace, and you can learn everything about what it takes to become a successful and effective coffee consultant in this industry. So we're launching that on the Coffee Knowledge Hub on the 17th of April.
Yeah, which is really exciting and something that I've always wanted to do, and I love what you guys are doing at Coffee Knowledge Hub. So I'm really honoured to have the opportunity that we can start putting our education there. It's the only place that it's available now. We're kind of only making it available there. And I hope it's the first of many. It's a really exciting time when what you guys are creating is a centralized place that people can find high quality content, high quality education. And it's a real testament to the work that you and Laura are doing.
Yes, no, absolutely. And it's, again, this is, it's material which is highly valuable for the industry. So the Coffee Knowledge Hub hosts a whole range of content, not just how to make coffee, but actually things that are valuable for coffee professionals. And this is a really, when you first presented this as an idea, I was like, yes, we need that. It has to be on the Coffee Knowledge. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us about the state of education in the coffee industry.
Yeah, so I thought this is a good place to start, because I want to sort of lay a bit of a or give an outline of what coffee education looks like today. Because certainly, I think when we both started in the industry, there was quite limited resources for education.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think on-the-job training
We
is
really were. I remember the days when it was like, oh, we're going from espresso to ristretto. Well, why? Well, just because that's the trend. Like, it was trends that were setting the education of what you do next. And it was like the blacker the better, like the ristrettos that were, a few drops. And then we went to long double ristrettos. And I mean, based on what? Nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think based on it, it kind of tastes good in the cup, and it's a bit of fun. It seems like a good idea. It makes sense. It makes sense to smash as much coffee into the glass here as you can, and then just
tamp and then tap and then tamp, and let's just see what happens.
Channeling be damned. So let's look at the state of coffee education. So I think we'll start at the bigger programs. So hopefully everyone listening to this is aware of the SCA certification programs, the coffee diploma system. Because it's worth starting there, because that is a program which has industry recognition, it has business recognition, it is really well structured from licensing of trainers to the quality of the content, and that content is consistently evolving. So certification programs or diplomas are an essential part of coffee education today. Then we have, and I should distinguish actually here, because sometimes certifications, diplomas are interchangeable, but actually, I guess in the strictly speaking, in the coffee world, we have the SCA system, which is more of a diploma system. So you go through and you do your barista skills, or your roasting, or your green coffee. They're the diplomas. And a certification example, actually, and a really good one, is what the Zurich School of Science, Zurich School of Applied Sciences is doing.
Okay.
You see the initial ZHOR, that's the Coffee Excellence Center from Shahan Yeretzian, who's been on the podcast. And that's a certificate of advanced studies in coffee excellence. Okay. Yeah. So they cover a lot of the science, the foundational science, covering from green to into the cup. And it's that's more of a certification program. SCA is also releasing a certification program coming up, but I don't think it's announced yet. So it's a little sneak preview of things to come.
So I have a question. When we use the word certification, is that a higher qualification than a diploma?
Yes. Yeah.
And what's the difference?
I think the scope. So it's the range of content in this case.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So with the SCA program, for example, the diploma is based on the specific category, so barista skills or roasting or green coffee, whereas with the certification would cover a range of those topics.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then we have micro courses. So like what we're releasing on the Coffee Knowledge Hub, I'm a coffee consultant. And you can provide a certificate to say you've completed it, but it's a micro course. It's very specific. And one of the key things about a micro course is knowing the exact set of skills and knowledge you're going to come away with from that particular topic. So Coffee Knowledge Hub has lots of micro courses. What you're doing in Map It Forward, also Barista Hustle, for example, would be more of a micro course, and there's any number of different micro courses if you think about the different coffee schools around the world who have created their own coffee training programs. They're more of a micro course. We have also the online communities. Okay, so we're talking here now about the sort of general state. Where can you find education or resources to teach you about coffee in the world? And so online communities are a valuable resource as well. trending
Some
now, I guess.
examples? Some
Yeah.
examples of those?
So examples. So Stand Up Magazine has quite a cool
Yeah.
one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the subscribers, they've got this this platform they've set up, and it's got it's basically an online community, and people ask questions, and then the community responds. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then in the early days of coffee, we had
The
Coffeed.
forums.
Yeah, we had the forums, right? So they're a good example. Really like passionate people sharing knowledge, asking questions, answering them, hacking their coffee machines on homebarista.com. It was Coffee Geek.
Yeah.
I went to check actually to see if it's still going, but that was a huge resource for education back in the day. So those are the kind of online communities. I've also just seen there's a new one called the Happy Coffee Network, which is very early days. It's from a Dutch AeroPress champion. I think she might have been the World AeroPress champion as well. I think her Instagram is Wendelian. Sorry if I'm not correctly, but so she's got a entertaining Instagram account, and she seems to have set up this this separate coffee Happy Coffee Network for letting people come online and sort of
learn,
be part of the community and learn, provide educational material. So we'll see how that evolves. And then we have in-person events. Okay. So we can't discount how valuable it is for people to come together and learn from each other. And probably the best examples of these are Expo and World of Coffee, where you have the SCA lectures, but then also the huge sort of networking of sort of touring the show floors. But going to those lectures at Expo and at World of Coffee is a really valuable resource. You get a lot of the latest thinking. You get leading trainers and academics and coffee professionals coming together, sharing their knowledge. And so that's a huge resource for people. Also, a plug for Coffee Knowledge Hub. We host SCA lectures on the Coffee Knowledge Hub. Free. You can watch them at your leisure. So if you can't make it to the event, then really do take advantage of that, because it's very interesting and trending topics. Then I have what I'm calling edutainment. Okay. And again, we can talk about this. We can talk about this in more detail, particularly when we talk about the importance of, or the role of trainers in this industry. Edutainment is things like social media platforms, right?
YouTube,
so
and
learning from Instagram, learning from YouTube, and TikTok and so on. Definitely has a role, but
buyer beware.
Buyer beware, absolutely. Yeah, really think about the motivation of people on these things. Not trying to disparage anyone who's doing that to a high level. For example, Samo Smirk or Coffee Sensorium.
Samo's doing a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's there is a lot of good content on there, but you really you have to be careful with what you watch and understand the motivations of people before fully taking everything they say on board.
Nice.
Then we have print media.
Okay.
It's not just that. Okay, so books and magazines.
Stand Out.
Yeah. Stand Out's a very good example. Barista Magazine, Fresh Cup, Roast Magazine, all these things which have been around for a long time. Yeah, I remember back, your career, remember David Schomer's Advanced Espresso Techniques or something. The only book on coffee. Now we've got Scott Rao's library books. A whole number of great books. So don't dismiss those. And then there's digital publications as well, which
blogs,
like Roast blogs and so on. So and finally, on the job, the old school way to learn. So,
on the job. And I would add one more: podcasts. Yeah,
sorry, I should have mentioned podcasts, obviously, in the digital,
in the current medium that we're using. I mean, I don't know if I think a lot about like what service we provide, and I always want to make sure, and it is kind of education. It educates people on what's going on in the industry and what trends are happening with regards to the economics and the supply chain and et cetera, et cetera. But it is a kind of education. It's not just entertainment,
Absolutely. Education. I meant to include it meant to call it out in my digital.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of all of these different education types. Yep. Okay, fantastic. Exactly. So folks, now you know all the different types of educations. Get ready, because we are about to have a very interesting conversation about it. Join us in the next episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.